Welcome to NFL Daily, where we prefer kids over dogs. I'm Gregg Rosenthal in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. Controversial start to the show with Colleen, Wolfe, and Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic. We are back here on a Tuesday.
How about it?
Good to see you guys.
Listen, I like kids just fine. I really love dogs.
I was just in an argument with you guys, just saying that showing dog pictures has a higher approval rating. Like, a lot of people don't care about kids or aren't really that into kids, which I get. But dog pictures, everyone loves.
Across the board.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a level of politeness for all. But like, as somebody who shows an obnoxious amount of dog pictures, including before the show began, I could say that I am pretty annoying when I show people incessant pictures of my sweet, sweet dog, Tucker.
I don't have videos in my algorithm being served to me of babies. I have dogs.
Well, that's
and animals.
If you were into babies,
hilarious.
And
you would.
Soups for me as well.
Soups. We gotta look at everyone's discovery page, see what's going on there.
I just think there are more Colleens out there than people like me who prefer humans.
Why are you trying to divide us
like
already?
I don't prefer
economy?
humans.
In this day and age, let's stay together.
Okay, let's do it.
Dogs.
This is a big show. It is our last show together as a trio before the NFL draft.
That's
before
right.
Colleen takes the big airplane and then a connecting flight, probably, because there's not directs to,
I do have
to
a
Green Bay.
layover.
It sounds like she's dying.
Yeah.
She took the big
kind
airplane.
of. I threw out my back. I don't know how I'm going to walk around on the stage in heels.
Well, you've got about a week to get ready.
Okay.
And this has been a really push our chips in the middle of the table and really start prepping for this draft. So this show is all about the most fascinating characters of the 2025 draft.
Ooh.
We're not even going to mess around with news. We're just going to dive right into the segment. Let's just go.
How about it?
We have it broken down into different categories. And I think let's start with the GM head coach category.
Okay.
Let's start there. And let's start with Jourdan Rodrigue.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, and Tony Baselli, Jacksonville Jaguars, have their first
Should have known.
draft of this new regime. And yes, that's a no-brainer if you know me at all. But it's interesting for a number of reasons. One, James Gladstone is the second youngest GM who's going to be drafting. I believe Andrew Barry was the youngest GM in NFL history several years ago.
Well, that's gone great. Yeah.
It is interesting, though, because they got a later start than everybody else. And if you're going to install a new general manager before the draft, as the Jaguars did, and particularly late in the process as they did, there's a lot of catch up to be done and a lot of things to kind of integrate into the building. And then what I do know about James and about Liam and about Tony is that they're also trying to make sure that they're not just doing a clean sweep of process and ideas. It's sort of a marriage between the old and the new and like pruning some of the old that didn't work, that they don't believe worked, and making sure that people are heard, the processes that do work are actually installed and implemented, and then also marrying some of the modern things that James did, especially with the Los Angeles Rams, into their process as well. And I think it's going to be really interesting. It's sort of a Frankenstein draft because you are a building still in transition. So I think 2026 will be most reflective of what this group as a trio will truly start to do together. But this one's going to be really interesting because they have to start rebuilding this roster and some of the older players that they did sign in free agency and replacing them with rising and ascending draft picks. I think it's going to be super interesting.
A Frankenstein draft, it really got me. I love that term. But so what do you think that Mason Graham is going to bring over from Les Snead and that whole tree with the Rams?
With James Gladstone?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of things that I got to see last year when I was interned with their scouting department in terms of some of the ways that they overhaul, tried and true practices for other teams. Like we already know they don't go to the all-star events like the scouting combine, the Senior Bowl. They don't go to a lot of these off-season visits. They do the pro days. They don't do 30 visits. Do we have sound for that?
We do.
Oh, we do.
You just walked right into it. Let's go.
How about that?
I don't view myself as having this extreme superpower of deciphering the complexity of a person in an hour. right? I would probably say I can work that in tandem, but there are other mechanisms that we tend to lean into to help us determine whether or not a player is in fact a fit for us, more than just a singular touch point that would be a top 30 visit.
Yeah, let me explain this.
Wait, I want to hear Colleen's reaction just to that because it was so strong when James Gladstone started speaking that I just wanted
Because he's a child. Because he looks like a baby. Yeah.
It was just all very unexpected. I wasn't expecting him the way that he looks. Also, what he was saying, it just caught me off guard a little bit.
Fair.
It was perfect.
Okay, if you guys will indulge me in like a little bit, I was thinking about this a lot over the last couple of days because this is topical right now with the 30 visits and the fact that the Rams, we've known for a while that they don't do the 30 visits. Instead, and the Jaguars are sort of following this train. That's because the guy who started this process for the Rams over the last 2 years, James Gladstone, is now the GM of the Jaguars. So the Jaguars are not doing the 30 visits in the traditional way, which are the visits that prospects come into the building. You're allowed to have up to 30 of them, and they have to be reported to the league. Well, one thing that the Rams do that the Jaguars will start to install over time and are doing sort of, like I said, a Frankenstein version of this now, is they don't bring prospects in. They go to them. They send their scouts and not their top executives because they're trying to remove bias and marriage to a prospect too early in the process before the board strategy falls. They're trying to remove those things from the equation and look at the actual scout who they hand select as somebody who is going to get on the whiteboard with these prospects at a place, whether it's their college or within a 50-mile radius from their hometown or their college. That you can do as many of those as you want, and you don't have to report them to the league, which is so they don't leak, right? Unless the agent leaks it. And usually there's some sort of an understanding between the agent and the team that, like, this is special, you're not going to leak it. So what happens at those visits is whoever the scout or the former coach or whoever it is, usually termed special assistant to in the staff directory, they will sit down with the prospect in what is deemed to be their environment. They'll get them on the whiteboard for several hours. It's not just a come in and do a job interview.
Several hours on the whiteboard?
They get into the weeds. They go into the community with the prospect.
What do you think NFL life is like,
the
Colleen?
prospect interacts with their community,
and
they want to basically see the player like in their environment and in their atmosphere because they find that to be more valuable.
Wait, can we keep having a conversation while you keep talking? It's like a great symphony
I'm
at the same
super
time.
passionate about this because I think the draft is such a crapshoot of a process that all these teams are trying to control, like all the little tiny variables that they possibly can control. And I think that if all I see out there and all I've seen for years, and it's probably because of where I've been covering, the team I've been covering, all I see is, oh my gosh, they don't do what? They don't go here. They don't do this process the same way. And I'm like, stop. This is not, none of the 32 teams are the same. They're not going to evaluate talent the same. The draft is not a binary process. The draft changes every single year. So why the are you not changing every single year? Why aren't you trying to figure out and ascertain what works for you, how you best feel like you get the best information? Not every team is going to be like that. Brad Holmes also comes from out of this building. He likes to be on the road. He likes to be in with the scouts. It really works for him and for the Detroit Lions and for Dan Campbell.
I want to see a breakdown of every team and like the differences, like what they do differently than other teams or what teams do the same. Like I kind of want to know the strategies for each team. Is this in an Excel document somewhere?
In general, the draft,
this is my life's mission.
Yeah, has a lot of groupthink, and it's good that teams like the Rams and the Jaguars now, because of Gladstone, are attacking it a little bit differently.
I call him Mason Graham because that's who I thought
they're going to draft.
See, we would have just edited it out, Colleen.
I brought it back around.
I loved it. It's good. It's after so many of these super, super fun shows, I immediately knew exactly.
Yeah.
It was like, we didn't even miss a beat. We just knew exactly what it was.
And I was like, damn it. It was the prospect.
They also are in a weird spot because they have the 5 pick, and I do just think everyone with like a 4 to 10 pick in this draft drew the short straw. Like this was a bad year to have, or even like a 4 to 15 pick that everyone's getting pushed up, that none of these guys would have been like a consensus top 15, top 20 pick in previous years. So it's just very tricky. And I remember that interview we did with James Gladstone at the scouting combine when we said, he had 10 picks, and he said, well, for now. And I think he could be a team that is trading up with some of his later picks, but he also could be a team that's trading down if anyone has their eye on that number 5 overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might mention that coming up.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And to reiterate, because I'm, like I said, I'm being a dork, but like I'm so passionate about this topic. Like you can't, even the way that they're approaching it now.
I like that you're pounding the table.
I know. I'm
for
literally
this
like, if
topic.
this doesn't work for that particular group, if this process that they're installing there doesn't work for them, the point is that I don't believe that James or Liam or Tony are people who are going to be rigid in that process. They're approaching the draft as a fluid concept, which I think is so important because there is so much that ultimately is left up to chance. All you can do is try to perfect the variables that you can control, and strategy in that way is one of them. And that means that you cannot just be rigid in your thinking about how you approach the process.
I like the way that they're trying to take the human element out of it, though, because it's nearly impossible.
Right.
to do.
It's such a difficult exercise because all of this is true and all these smart people are into building these processes and taking these players and the coaches, and so like it's a multi-million-dollar per team group in terms of salaries and all this stuff. And still by far the number one reason why it works or not is luck.
Okay, what about-
it's
And I'll
luck.
give you an
You can't
example.
tell me that
What
in the
about-
end it's basically you're just trying to improve. It's like gambling. You're trying to improve. Let's say gambling is 30% skill and 70% luck if you were really great. Like you're just trying to improve that 30%. And that's still what drafting is. Like you're just trying to improve that 30%.
Love is blind for NFL GMs.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Right?
An example of this, of the inverse of this, and falling too far in love with the prospect way too early in the process has been recognized even internally in LA because it happened with Stetson Bennett when Les Snead is going to the playoff and the championship game and watching Stetson Bennett play in person. And he really, really likes Stetson Bennett, who thrives on the whiteboard when Kellen Clemens goes and does this visit with him. But there were so many things that ended up coming up that the Rams just knew about but didn't care as much about because they fell too far in love with the prospect before the actual process was ready to manifest in that way.
That's
And these
human
are the
nature,
types
though,
of
too.
These are the types of things. It's why they're trying to do the bias removal thing. It's not a perfect process.
Right.
But
if
it
like
is
Bennett had worked out, then they would be like, that was great.
You look like a genius.
And that is where the luck part of it comes into it, because he could have just worked out for different reasons that they thought were true, and just he didn't have the talent ultimately. Well, we don't know, actually.
So many things have to align.
All right, let's go, or else we're only going to go through the wild cards. You're up.
Okay. We're doing.
I mean, not the wild cards, the GM head coach category.
Okay. Well,
I know. I was like scrolling up.
we already mentioned his name once on the show, Andrew Berry. I feel like what are the Browns going to do? First of all, the history is so rich with them needing a quarterback. But I mean, if it goes down to Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, who do they value more in that spot? And would they be willing to take a quarterback with the first pick in the second round, or even trade back into the first at the end to get a quarterback? And if not, does that mean that they're already scouting next year's quarterback class or even the class in 2 years? So I want to know, for Andrew Berry, I'm watching whether or not this draft for him, if he's drafting like his job is on the line, or if he's still drafting for the future and building towards something, because the Browns have 2 third-round picks, so it gives them that additional ammunition to trade up if they want to do that, because they got that with the Amari Cooper trade to the Bills. So I think that they're obviously interesting for a multitude of reasons, but watching how Andrew Berry drafts this time around, I think will really tell you a lot.
You know what would not surprise me is to see him in this specific situation as optically strange as it would appear, to, especially in the moment as we're breaking it down, is if they said, okay, there's a lot of these teams that want a quarterback. They don't necessarily want like Shedeur at 3 or Shedeur at 2 or Jackson Dart in the first round, or like Tyler Shuck in the first round. Like, but there's a growing pool of teams that would take those guys in back of round 1, round 2, round 3. It would not surprise me to see him go way early on a quarterback that we might not even be pairing to them right now, because it's always been Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, 1, 2. And so that would not surprise me to see them go with a quarterback that we may not even be projecting that high, simply to prevent the chance, as more picks start getting stockpiled in the middle and later rounds, that guy is gone. Like, if you see the quarterback you want, take the quarterback. What else could go wrong?
Honestly.
Right. I just have a hard time because we do this at this time of year generally with the quarterbacks. And in general, it is a good bet that they're going to get pushed up. I just don't see it with these guys. I don't think I think in the end, it's going to be a lot of conversation, and that everyone, including the Browns, are going to be cool with just
Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Let's go.
They're just going to be cool with who falls to them. Okay, if Shuck falls to them at the top of the third round, which I don't think is a crazy outcome, or if they were interested in someone else that they think is on the same tier as Shuck at the third round, that's one thing. But I don't think anyone's going to be moving up for these guys.
But this is where I have an issue with the draft itself, because this is what we were just talking about. Even the way that you framed it, if they're going to hope that someone falls to them, that is immediately ceding control of that variable.
I think they're in that scenario not really caring if someone falls to them ultimately, and being like, yeah, we'll take him if he makes sense. But it would be closer to the 2022 draft, where other than Pickett, who people did expect to go in the first round for the most part, like Malik Willis, literally 2 days before the draft in Vegas, he was favored to go top 3. He didn't go in the top 70. Conversely,
just
everyone was wrong because everyone just assumes quarterbacks are going to get pushed up, and I just don't see it with Chuck.
Last season, you have the recency bias of Bo Nix and Mike Penix getting pushed up and taken because the coaches and the scouting and general management staff were like, okay, we see quarterback, we take quarterback. And then, so you have a recency bias there of okay, you could have, those guys' projections were also all over the map. I'm not saying specifically, I think Tyler Shuck or Jackson Dart, whoever these 3 down guys are supposed to go in the first. I'm just saying that if you are a team that needs a quarterback and you see the quarterback you want and you have the pick, I would imagine if you have nothing else to lose and you're in job butt saving mode at this point, then you take the quarterback.
I just think there's a cutoff line, and I could be wrong. We could all be wrong about any of these evaluations. I don't think any of them are going to get people that excited. I think it's a pretty clear, and I think Nix and Penix, if you're comparing, would have been in that Shedeur sort of category. And I think there is more of a consensus about these players not really being great prospects at quarterback. But that makes the Shedeur conversation, and he's not, I don't think we're going to be mentioning him, and we just haven't talked about on this show that the Giants are holding a private workout for Shedeur just before the draft is happening. What is it? At the end of this week, and they were very careful to put that out there. So I think the expectation is no one thinks the Browns are taking a quarterback there, but the Giants at the very least are letting everyone know either our ownership's getting involved and is pretty into Sanders and is making them check all the boxes, or B, hey, Saints, you're out there. You could be trading up to us potentially. Dan Morgan, the Panthers GM, this is on his radar as well. Dan Morgan, the Panthers GM, talked about where he's at, number 8, 1 spot ahead of the Saints.
I don't think yet. I think it's still a little early for that. I think maybe down the line I'll expect it a little more, but, right now things are quiet. It only takes one team to fall in love with a player, so, a team could fall in love with a player and decide they want to trade up with us and go get their guy. So, I really don't look at it like that. I just look at it as, a team's just may really love a guy. So we'll be waiting if somebody wants to come up.
He's in such a good spot. Again, if I'm looking at what happened last year, especially in the early teens, late single digits of teams wanting to try to get up and in for specific guys, especially the middle and the bottom of this first round kind of drops off the face of a cliff into the second round. Colleen, I could not help but laugh because I thought of what you said a couple weeks ago. The Saints are here too.
Yes. And now with the Derek Carr situation,
right?
It's on Front Street. I think they're the most likely team.
It was 10 before.
Thank you, Mickey Loomis. My floor for Shedeur Sanders, I've always thought it was going to be 9. I always thought they were the Shedeur Sanders team. I still think they are. I still think in the end, no one's going to trade up, but who knows? The Giants, I think with that move, are saying come up and possibly trade for us, but who knows? Maybe they would do Shedeur. I do wonder if they look at it like if your guy, Andrew Berry, and you're right, to go into the year with Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco as your quarterbacks, that is having a lot of faith in your job security when you're 3-14. You're coming off a 3-14 season. Like it's insanity. But also, like, it doesn't seem any less insane to have like a second round, quality quarterback in that mix too. I do wonder though, and I have a hard time believing job security wise that any team is passing up Travis Hunter. The closer I get to this, the more I've watched that actually people are talking about in this draft that there's not enough like blue chip talent. Like, I don't think many teams are going to have Abdul Carter even over him. I do think he's going to be a Cleveland Brown, and that Andrew Berry would have to wear that forever if he doesn't take Travis Hunter. So I still think the most like logical outcome is the most likely one, which is that they just take Travis Hunter. But then, you never know.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to us. I would agree with that.
So who's winning that quarterback competition? Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco?
Flacco, I think. Man. My GM coach is going to be another guy that's related to some recent news, which is Chris Grier. You mentioned it on the last show you did with us, Jourdan, with Ross Tucker, that you don't know what to do with this Dolphins team and roster, and they're in a very weird spot. Much like Andrew Berry, I feel like Chris Grier should be making decisions based on the fact that he probably doesn't have a lot of job security. And then we find out on Tuesday morning that there is, quote, mutual interest between Jalen Ramsey and the Dolphins of a divorce, according to our Ian Rappaport. And it was reported by ESPN on the same day, trying to drum up a trade market. Not sure where this started, which side, but it's been a trend for Jalen Ramsey that he has an expiration date. And if you actually go back and listen to some quotes he made at the very end of the season, where they kind of asked him to more or less give a vote of confidence for the coaches and what they should do. And he was just like, well, that's above my pay grade.
Oh, and that's right. I forgot about that.
That was a little bit of a first sign that maybe not all is well there, which is kind of crazy because they guaranteed him $25 million for this season, 2025, when they absolutely didn't need to do it. They are regretting that Tyreek Hill extension and this Jalen Ramsey extension. And yet I now expect him to be an ex-Dolphin. I guess there'll be a market for him. Jourdan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there will be. I think that it's interesting. Every few years, this has happened with him. And if you look at the situations of the teams within which this was happening, it was teams that looked like they were signaling toward a rebuild. And this is a player who, possible future Hall of Famer, guy who is quite used to being at the very top of his game, is getting into, I would say, more of the back end of his career. And I think it's about wanting to go win. I certainly think that it would be a big mistake. And I covered Jalen for a really long time and got to know him pretty well in LA. You don't put words in his mouth, right, about these situations. But I would say, I would imagine that winning and being with a franchise that expects to win over the next couple of years is something that is going to be important to him and a priority for him. And it's, yes, they negotiated this amount from the Dolphins. Dolphins didn't have to do it. So I think he doesn't necessarily feel any sort of way about the money itself. I would imagine, yes, he would want some security from a trading team. But I think, to me, in my opinion, if you look at the pattern of these moves with him over the last 8 years, the team is either in or heading toward darker days and needs to overhaul and rebuild some things. And so to me, where you hear the word mutual, it does seem like something that they would agree upon, because it might be just time for him to go.
That contract, though, is going to be so tough for any team to take on. It's like $21 million guaranteed.
I think if you look at it just for 1 year, you would, if you had to get rid of him next year, then you would take a bit of a hit. But a lot of teams actually can take that on immediately. People are connecting dots between him and his old Rams coordinator, Raheem Morris. And that could be an interesting addition for the Falcons, who I think, even though pass rush is a bigger need for them, it would really...
Was ever thus.
Yeah, they need a lot on defense, and it would juice up their secondary. I could see it happening. I could see it being very mutual, because by the end of last year, I think they were a little sick of Jalen Ramsey too, potentially, and he was a little up and down. You're trading for him at a point of his career that you can no longer expect him to be a truly elite player?
There are 3 coaches who I would say have gotten the best, the most bought in, and the most, I guess, like permeating that sort of like excellence through and carrying people with him and gotten the best out of Jalen. And that is Raheem Morris, that's Brandon Staley, and that's also Jonathan Cooley and Giro Evero, who are in Carolina right now. So I would not rule any of those things out.
I also think that Jalen Ramsey and his agent are obviously a lot smarter about this than I would be. And I don't think they're going out to the public with it and putting up the for sale sign as a targeted idea until they know they have good outcomes here. Places that they want to go, that they have
NFC South teams I could very much see being
right, and that they already have an understanding that there is a market, there is a team that we would like to go to that would like to have us. So at this point, it's kind of like the Derek Carr situation. I'm already at the point I don't expect Derek Carr to ever play for the Saints again. I think that report
get him out of there before Jalen comes in. For the love of God.
that could be it.
Yeah.
Like I just I feel like putting that report out there is kind of like I'm saying goodbye to you. And Derek Carr, for the most part, how I think the NFL, other people are interpreting his injury news is, I'm injured for you, Saints, but I'm not necessarily injured for other teams.
Exactly.
Which is a wild position to take.
We're here too.
But it's a strategy. The Saints are here too.
I kind of like it. There's some Saints fans that I've noticed on social media this week who are like for the first time, I kind of like Derek Carr. I gotta give it to him. Like he's pulling a Jimmy Butler and making Mickey Loomis eat that contract. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be back with more of the most fascinating people in the 2025 draft. Back on NFL Daily, going through the most fascinating figures in the NFL draft. Why are you laughing so much?
I'm laughing at myself. Like, I didn't expect to open today with like a draft rant. You know, I did, as I was driving in, I was thinking about like how big this year has been insane. And at one point I was driving to Arizona for a relocated football game. And I had a reminder of that today when I opened my glove compartment and there was a half-eaten bag of family-sized chili cheese Fritos. Felt really good about
wow.
Oh,
myself.
No. We're going to need to clean your car.
Feel really good about how with it and on it I am so far this off season. Not behind on things at all. You know?
I mean, that is what it's like to work in the NFL and sports probably in general. But it's like anytime the off season, quote unquote, hits, it's like, oh, now I'm gonna like clean out this closet or do all of the things that have piled up over 9 months.
I don't know what it says about my brain though, that when you said you opened the glove compartment, I thought like ashes from the fire were gonna come out.
It's morbid.
I was like, is there gonna be a Glock in there?
That's amazing.
I'm a woman on the edge.
Let's go offensive players. All right. Who, Colleen,
what
is your most famous? You have to answer
my
these
most
questions.
famous? Okay.
No, your most fascinating offensive player in this.
Well, there are so many to choose from. But I'm really, really interested to see what happens with Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. I mean, he's been pitched so many times as a generational talent, but let's see what GMs are not cowards. Who's going to take him high in this spot? I mean, I want to know how the league values him as a player and how the league values running backs, essentially, especially after watching the Eagles with Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jeremiah has Jeanty as his third prospect overall behind Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. Lance Zierlein has him as his highest, full stop, graded player in the draft. We know that Bijan Robinson, he went high, but I'm just wondering if there's any chance that anyone would trade ahead of the Raiders for him, because that's where he's been mocked in most drafts. So or you could have the Raiders trading up with the Browns to take a quarterback. There's so many different things that you could kind of do in this situation. I was wondering too, could the Jags trade out of 5 to someone who really wants to jump up and get him. Is that too high? 5? Like,
I don't think it is, but trading up for a running back would be next level. Running backs are back. You know what I mean?
I know.
That would be next level. I think him going at 6 would not be next level. I think Amari and Hampton is such a good prospect that he's definitely going in the first round. And I don't think anyone would be surprised if another running back, Trey Henderson specifically, would go in the first round. So I do think running backs will be back. Trading up ahead of the Raiders is crazy.
Back.
Heck, the Jaguars could take. I don't think it's crazy for the Jaguars to take Ashton Jeanty.
Absolutely not. He's also from Jacksonville.
Ooh.
Connection.
Hey!
But I also think it would immediately be very clear. It's not just that running backs are back. It's like outlier players.
Yes.
Trade up and draft outlier players. That's that's part of the Saquon Barkley effect isn't just the resurgence of running backs and the return of like widespread gap scheme and maybe moving a little bit more away from zone and bigger players on the interior and linebackers that need to defend the run. Like, you also are seeing like these outliers pop in this way. So it's not just running backs being back and like worth the capital in the first round, but also for something like that, you would be stating as an NFL team, this is an outlier player, regardless of position, that is worth this investment in, regardless, because we've seen what specifically an outlier player, regardless of position, can do. Philadelphia.
If someone jumps ahead of the Raiders, how upset will Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly be? They love a run game.
They might just take Trayvon Henderson at 6, which
would be
which sounds like a wild reach, and I'm making the Chip Kelly connection because he was with him at Ohio State. But when I hear MJD talk about Eric Bieniemy, who's the running back coach of the Bears, is texting him late at night, sending him pictures of Trayvon Henderson and pass blocking, and then DJ, who is as tight end at this time of year as literally any human on the planet, he's got him up there like that high and like saying he's going to go high. Like he's going to go high too because he's a true 3-down player. And so that's why I think the Bears are taking a running back, and I think there's a pretty good chance the Raiders would take one, even in a crazy world where Jeanty's gone. But I don't think he would be. But even if the Raiders pass on him, I think the Jets are another potential running back team. In this class, there are going to be so many. People hate to say this at this time of year. There's going to be so many disappointments out of these top 20 picks. And it's kind of like an NBA team that doesn't have any good players, but someone has to score 20 points. Someone has to get 12 rebounds. Someone has to score 17 points. Like the vacuum will be filled. You know what I mean? And so we are talking about all these players in the top 25 like it's a normal top 25, but normally we wouldn't be talking about them this much. And even in a normal draft, half the players kind of turn into disappointments, and you never talk about that ahead of time. My long-winded point is that some of these running backs, especially Jeanty being number 1, is like, it's really hard to see them being a disappointment. So if you feel like you can hit a double and avoid these possible
landmines,
exactly, then go take them.
I think that Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly and maybe John Spytek's son would be disappointed. He was at his press conference a few weeks ago or on the radio or somewhere. He was talking about how his son said he threatened to walk out of the family if he didn't draft Ashton Jeanty. And John Spytek said something really telling. I think those 3 in particular decision makers would be disappointed. But I don't know that John Spytek would be disappointed. I don't know that John Spytek would be really upset if a team decided, hey, we want to give you a crap load of picks in order to jump you, in order to get to get to your spot, to get Ashton Jeanty if a couple of other running backs are available. Because I think John Spytek, and he kind of made this comment, they have so many holes to fill and they want to compete now. And yes, an outstanding outlier running back could help you.
And they gave up that Geno pick too, which probably sticks in his craw.
I feel like that this is. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that building right now, because I feel like this is going to be the top debate. Is they've done all of they've laid the entire base. They know that if he's there, I would imagine he is the pick. That's what I would believe, because they've laid the base. They took him out to dinner. They had they did everything right. They've also laid a base to say, hey, come get him to other teams and give us a lot of picks so that we can go back a little bit in the first round, still pick up a really talented running back, and also get more offensive linemen, get another receiver to pair with Brock Bowers. This is where I think John Spytek would fall on that side of the equation.
Even if his son renounces him.
It's a tough price to pay, you know? But then he said this. He said, well, my son's looking at highlights on YouTube and he's thinking about it in terms of fantasy football, not team building.
Oh,
Right.
And I was like, damn.
Okay.
You could always get another son.
Yeah.
But you'll only be number 6 in
Now,
your
if the
first
dog
draft.
threatened to walk out,
Right.
Honestly,
this
now
is
we're
a
talking.
whole other conversation.
So if 3 running backs go, and that's one where
Mine would.
I saw the over/under for running backs in the first round is 2.5. I would jump on that before
The over?
that changes. We're not allowed to be involved in that, but I think that's going to change by the time the draft even happens. But it would be the first time since 2018 when Saquon Barkley, Rashad Penny, and Sony Michel
Oh my God.
were taken. And yeah, maybe this was the class that ended running backs getting taken high for a little while
Sony
because
Michel has 2 Super Bowl rings.
in the second round, Ronald Jones, Kerryon Johnson, and Darius Geis were the second round picks.
Wow.
Yeah, I always defended that Sony Michel pick. It got them a nice playoff run. All right, I'll go with my most fascinating offensive player.
Okay.
It's Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, just because he's such a unique player that I don't know what to do with. He's so exciting and you want to believe in him, but he also is like, if I was running a team, I would be pretty afraid to take him. I don't think he would be my guy. Like, I know Daniel Jeremiah loves him. He's got him number 6 overall, but he's such a unique player. You're not going to have the testing data on him. He's refused to do that, it's not a red flag necessarily anymore because no one's testing, but it's a little bit of a red flag for him specifically because he's like a terrible blocker and he doesn't look that fast. And so you're counting on this guy who has such a one-on-one skill set, which is that when he has the ball, he runs over people in a way that I don't know if I've ever seen. He's like, and I heard Ollie Connolly, or it was John Ledyard maybe compared him to like what people imagine Tim Tebow actually would have been if Tim Tebow was a tight end. But you're combining him and Debo and Taysom Hill and just like, to me, he reminds me of Jeremy Shockey a little bit. But
Oh my God, really?
where like you don't even know, can this work at the NFL level? And also he was on Penn State's team forever and they never figured out a way to make him work until the very end of his 5th year, and then suddenly he was like the craziest player on the planet. So he could be the most exciting player from this entire class when he's out on the field if he works. And yet I feel like if he gets drafted by some basic team without a lot of creativity, like it might really bust. And I'm like a little afraid of him. So I find him fascinating. I have no idea where he's going to go.
Yeah, I love this topic because it also opens the conversation that I think more people need to have this time of year, and DJ is extremely good at articulating this, is the difference between evaluating a player in a vacuum of evaluation, in a big board ranking, in a consensus top 100, in those types of things, versus the other side of things, which is, again, DJ's done this on the other side as well, like of what it looks like for a team specifically to be evaluating this player. How he fits, what traits match to what the coaching staff is communicating within their system, within their scheme. Does this actually work? Would this be something where they would create for this player? Or would he be able to fit into the mix immediately and have a actual plan for him to maximize his ability? Now, if that's not the case, do you spend that high draft capital on this type of conversation?
No, you spend it on Colston Loveland is what I think, because he just looks like all the other tight ends in the league.
You should be a scout.
That makes me feel safer. But maybe I'll be wrong.
He looks like a tight end.
He made his day.
No, maybe I'll be wrong. It's not that I'm anti Tyler Warren. I just hope
I know.
it works out.
But I do think it opens up a really interesting conversation because there is what the the ecosystem, and
the consensus board, essentially,
the commercialism around the draft is. And then there's also, in duality, the conversation that's happening in these buildings about matching players and matching traits to that building.
Even coaching styles, too.
Yeah, exactly.
He just needs, like, a creative guy. Like, not to pick on Zach Taylor or something. It's like, he just wouldn't make any sense on the Bengals, Because the Bengals do what they do. You need someone who's going to just be like, build the whole ship out of Tyler Warren. He's that type of player. All right, you're up.
It's like the same thing as when I say, actually, good point, Greg. not to pick on Zach Taylor. Proceeds to pick on Zach Taylor. Okay, I'm scrolling. What are we doing?
Offensive player.
Offensive player. Oh, cool. Yeah, I want to talk about the wide receiver class overall. I mean, we'll go pretty general on this because I know this is a big topic, but I just have this feeling, especially watching the tape of some of these guys, that like this is actually a wide receiver class where outside of the double position, Travis Hunter, who's going to be a phenom. And then there's like Tet McMillan and Matthew Golden, and they're kind of flip-flopped on some people's boards as consensus one after however much Travis Hunter plays receiver. Consensus 2-3. They're flipped a little bit, but after them and after like the top 15 and maybe even the top 25 and deep into the second and third rounds, I think this class is full of guys sort of like the career arc of like a Chris Godwin, for example, that you're just going to see them sustain. Like
That's interesting.
There's a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things. They have exciting traits. A lot of guys that can match and fit in a lot of different systems. I'm talking about Luther Bird and Jalen Knoll, Emeka Egbuka, Jack Beck, Kyle Williams. I feel like all of these players you could get them in the second or the third, and they'll be in your building for like a decade. And I know that's like a heavy thing to say, especially this time of year. It's super buzzy, but it just seems like these guys can do these things. They have these traits and they have the versatility. A lot of them do. And they have this like ability. Okay, you need a 2. Okay, great. This guy can be a 2. You eventually need a 1. In 3 years, he'll be a 1. Like high volume people as well.
And it seems like it's coming from too, just it's a general wave and trend that's happening because of what's happening at the collegiate level and how they're playing the game. It's just churning out these wide receivers that are much more talented than years past.
If you take Hunter out, which you kind of can't because to me, he's maybe the best wide receiver prospect in the last few years. Like,
yeah, I mean,
think he's at the level of Chase, but it reminds me a little bit of the draft where Terry McLaurin went 12th among wide receivers. And so I pulled it up. I wouldn't have been able to remember off the top of my head.
Who went before him?
Yeah, and many of them,
I love this game.
A few of them were incredible. A.J. Brown went 51st in that class overall, late in the second round. His college teammate went 64th at the very end, the last pick of the second round. So there were some major hits. Debo went at the top of the second round. Mm-hmm. But then, like, the guys who went in the first round were Hollywood Brown and N'Keal Harry. Yikes. It was a really deep class where people were really excited about Mecole Hardman, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who the Eagles took instead of, DK Metcalf, and then they end up getting A.J. Brown. Paris Campbell, Andy Isabella, Deontay Johnson goes later in that draft. Like, people were excited about Hakeem Butler, where it's just like there's all these guys. And this class feels a little bit like that to me, where it feels like there's 15 good guys, and we just know from history that only 5 will truly pop, but I think there's a lot of good, solid players too.
I will take the converse of that, which tends to be more optimistic than you, because I actually think that because if you look at just the trait matching and just the way, like some of those guys that you named that didn't quite work out, like had one phenomenal thing that they did extremely well that was eye-popping and had everybody sort of buzzing in their direction. And these guys, I think, especially a lot of the ones that I just named, can do a lot of different things. And they're like puzzle pieces that I think, especially the way that we're thinking about offense right now and the certain systems that have permeated across the league, like we're looking at puzzle piece receivers in ways that are like, okay, can you do multiple things well? And maybe you do this A+ thing and this B+ thing, but we already have an A+ guy on our roster. We're going to take this guy and plug him in a B+ position here that he does at a B+ level. And now we have 2 A+ people because we have a complementary view of all of this, where you're not just gravitating and fireflying toward like, oh my God, he's massive, like that kind of a thing. That I think was a N'Keal Harry problem.
At the time, massive was underrated. Remember that picture of A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, like lifting weights at Ole Miss. If anyone had just looked at that picture and drafted off that picture, they would not have gone.
They looked like wide receivers.
They would not have gone 64. It is crazy to think
territory.
That those 2 guys of all people went that late, like when they had the physical gifts that they had. And the crazy thing about it was at the time, it's not what I meant. Just saying big, fast, strong.
Get in the way, stay in the way.
Yeah.
And there was like whispers about their whether they had the dog in them, whereas that is like one of the funniest
It's
like,
a crazy time of year. All I'm
terrible
saying is if
scout
you
stuff.
pick
So
this
dumb.
conversation back up and mark the timestamp in like 3 years,
Okay, let's do it.
I would guess that a lot of these guys that I just mentioned will be successful, and you didn't have to get them in the first round.
I love
Yep.
a time capsule.
We will be diving deep into the wide receivers on our next show, actually, with
Ooh.
Matt Harmon and
Oh, I love
Patrick
him.
Claybon.
Love him too.
Yay.
Old friends from the Fantasy Live Show. Let's take one more break, and then we'll wrap up with our wild card choices of the most fascinating people in the NFL Draft 2025. It's the last NFL Daily with
Ever?
Jourdan, Colleen, and I for the draft. But you will be back next week, Jourdan.
Greg the Scout.
I'm not letting you go
Yeah.
anywhere.
You got a busy week.
we might do our mock draft with you because I want to do one before the draft. One last one, one first one for me.
I hope you're ready to like physically fight over some of these guys.
Where are you guys going to do it? At the Octagon.
I took like 6 weeks, I would say, of boxing 3 years ago. So I think I'm
we
ready.
have a personal trainer now, Steven.
There you go. Big time Raiders fan. This is all embarrassing. Let's talk about our wild cards before we say goodbye. So this could be anything or anyone. Let's start with Colleen.
Okay. My biggest wild card, it's Trey Hendrickson.
Oh.
I just I know the Bengals have turned down multiple trade offers for him, and they have the cap space to make a deal. But every single day that goes by, I just become more and more convinced that something is going to happen and they might end up trading him. Maybe it happens on draft day. Maybe they're kind of holding that card just in case. And I you never know, but I don't know what you could even get for him in terms of round value either. Like what would a trade package even look like?
It's tricky, these veteran trades that happen during the draft or maybe even draft week, because it's like a catch-22. Teams just do not want to give up these picks. They're so close to the draft. They've put in so much work. It's almost like preparing for this show. If you've prepared for a certain part of the segment, you just want to get it in there regardless. At this point, they put in so much work. They just want to.
Why are you looking at me?
They want to take the picks because you want to talk best defensive player or most fascinating defensive player. And they don't want to do it. Like they just don't want to give it up for a veteran. And yet the value is so good because at the same time they're doing that, they're happy to give up. Oh, sure, you want 2/3 so we can move up 20 spots into the back of the second? Like, sure, I'll do that when I'm on the clock because I really want this draft prospect. So I think it would make sense for a team out there to give a legitimate offer for Hendrickson and make it happen because I think they could make it happen.
Yeah, and things get so much more tense and insane in those days, particularly going from day one overnight into day two, and then day two overnight into day three. I had an executive one time tell me when they were sitting on a really high 4th round pick that it felt like going to bed in a hotel with the door unlocked and a pile of money under your mattress. And I was like, what? That's oddly specific. But it was like that feeling of like, I have this thing that everyone wants and I'm not sure that I can use it correctly, like, and I can keep it. And so everyone's going to come try to take it, this pick that I have. And so it gets so tense and you start thinking in crazy ways and like people will come with offers, especially if they want to get to that pile of money under the mattress. I just think that if you get this done now, if you're the Bengals, you might not actually be able to get quite as much.
Fair.
I am worried about that GM or source that was talking about. It's like it's just like you're at a hotel and the money's under the mattress and you're trying to sleep on it, but the drugs are in the car and like your wife is calling you. Where are you? It's just oddly specific.
And some guy is walking down the hall slowly, dragging a cattle tranquilizer behind him, like No Country for Old Men. You know.
I love this. We should make a social clip out of it. All right, give me your wild card.
Please don't.
No.
Okay, I know that frequently we use this man's name and the words wild card.
Is it Sam Darnold?
Together in a sentence so often. I mean, the very definition of wild card, Kirk Cousins.
Oh.
Okay, to recap. So, Kirk Cousins and the Falcons and the Browns have all stayed in communication over the last several weeks about a possible trade. Obviously, then the Browns went and signed Joe Flacco. It's like $4 million guaranteed, but he could make up to about $13 million if he depended on playing time. Albert Breer said some interesting stuff this week in his Monday Morning Quarterback column about how you're basically telling the league like what you think Kirk Cousins' value is. This is his postulation. If you're the Browns, and basically how much you're willing to pay Joe Flacco if such a trade or you don't get a quarterback doesn't work out. And it is interesting. Albert has also reported, and I think Ian and Tom have reported this as well, that Kirk Cousins has been really serious about using his no trade clause because he's terrified that he's going to get Michael Penixed again. And so he wants to wait until after the draft to make a decision. But like he kind of does add a bit of a wild card, especially with the Browns signing Joe Flacco, to this quarterback game of musical chairs while we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. We are waiting on Kirk Cousins. We're waiting on the draft itself.
Derek Carr,
who may or may not have a hurt shoulder.
I mean, so, I believe that he truly does, shoulder. But I don't believe.
How much does it hurt?
I don't know.
It's like pain scale, 1 to 10. So I think that this is super interesting just because he is a factor in all of this. He also is a potential draft week or draft day or draft days, plural, part of this conversation, depending on what he decides to do and what the Falcons decide to do with that no trade clause.
I think Flacco was smart leverage for them from getting stuck in a position where they don't wind up with Kirk Cousins, but I don't necessarily think it changes even 1% like their chances of getting Kirk Cousins. I don't know what those chances are, but I don't think Joe Flacco, if they ended up being the most likely team he was going to go to, will get in the way of that. Because if you're the Browns, you look at it like Kenny Pickett's on a rookie contract. Joe Flacco's making $4 million. You literally have the cheapest quarterback room in the league still, and I think they would be happy to take Kirk Cousins, but they have to live in a world where who knows what the Saints are going to do, for instance, and like what else is it's an uncertain world.
So I know it's crazy to even think about like a Falcons-Saints trade scenario just because of the rivalry and the competition. But actually I could see something like this happen in light of this Derek Carr situation. And especially if, Kirk, again, we cannot forget, like he's going to get to pick.
I love this so much.
If he does want this to happen or not. What we do know, he does not.
Give it to me. Give me a Kirk to the Saints trade for the Falcons.
I can hear our friends at the Saints Block Party podcast listening to this and just dying at the entire thought of this.
The Saints are here too.
But
clip that, please.
But I do think that like you have to factor in the fact that the stance he's taken with this no trade clause. I mean, it clearly was hugely disappointing to him what happened to him last year. He clearly thinks that he can still play. There was all these leaks about an injury that he sustained late in the season, and now he's totally better now, and he's going to be fine. And clearly he wants to start somewhere, which is also why I think now it is an interesting, like you said, an interesting leverage play. Because would you want to go, because Joe Flacco and Kevin Stefanski paired up for that like wildly voted upon comeback player of the year award season, would you want to go in that building now where that relationship and that reputation between the two does exist? Do you think that you are for sure going to take them out? Like these are all things that now the carousel will move and consider. And then you have like, there's going to be an odd man out. Like, is it Rodgers? Is it Cousins? Could it be Derek Carr? Like there is going to be a veteran quarterback who's the odd man out. Somehow it is not Joe Flacco.
I am so into that.
I hear that, and that makes me think that the Cousins thing would be even less likely to the Saints. But maybe in that scenario, there's not a rookie there. Like it's Kirk Cousins, but they struck out on their rookies, or they decided not to go with the rookies. Ultimately, here are some players that play the same position as Joe Flacco that make the same amount of money or more than him this year. I'm just going to list them.
Guaranteed.
Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, Josh Dobbs, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, and
the trauma that he experienced last year during the draft.
Won't somebody think of poor Kirk?
Exactly.
And all of his money.
Well, we can this offseason when he's starring in another season of quarterback on Netflix.
He has all of his money.
Everyone
under the
was just
mattress.
like, hey, let's bring Kirk back.
Leaves his door unlocked. Cole's cash just stuffed in there.
My final wild card is someone near and dear to all of our hearts. my wild card for the draft is Colleen Wolfe. Actually, she's gonna be there. She's wearing her 2024 draft shirt.
Wait, I'm doing the thing that everyone isn't
Right?
supposed to do, and I have my last name on the back.
Oh,
with the letter.
wow. Colleen
Number one.
with a great cutoff 2024 sweatshirt.
Thank you.
Belichick style, sort of, not really.
She said it was too long, and I said, no, Colleen, it was normal sized. You were
Yeah,
simply
it was just
tiny.
like to my knees. So.
You know, she starred at the last draft.
What is this?
In Detroit? It's,
Hello.
you know, it's just trying to build up the YouTube audience. So, you know, check us
Okay,
out and
yeah.
subscribe. It's just a collection of what you were
How
working
about
with
it?
last year at the draft.
Our stance.
If you are
Yeah.
in Green Bay, you know, yell
suit.
out to Colleen and how much
Please
you love
do.
NFL Daily. It has to include me, though, too. I mean, not me like my name, but NFL Daily.
Oh,
So
no, he
I
wants
don't just to
60%
say hi. Yeah.
Doesn't count.
But
Just
sure,
NFL Daily.
anything, anything works. But
All right.
I just hope we get you back.
You think I'm just gonna like be gone in Green Bay forever?
I don't know. I just it's a big
I
weekend.
go missing in Green Bay.
It's a big weekend for you. It's a big weekend for our
True.
friend Daniel Jeremiah. I mean,
Well,
you got to stay on top. I feel like NFL Network has the best draft coverage.
of course they do.
DJ's
Greg.
the number one guy. I'm not going to pretend and say that though when I don't believe it about certain competitions. But this one right now, we've got it. But you got to be wary about Field Yates and Mel Kiper and what ESPN's bringing or what
Watch your
else is
back.
going on out there. You got to stay on top.
I lose my voice every year after the draft, which is bad news because I'm hosting GMFB that following Monday through Friday. So you can tune in and thank
That's
you.
awesome.
It is. You could see how I fared
Yeah.
through the draft. My physical state.
That's how you know.
Hi, kids.
Jordan's like a newbie or is very naive. That she's saying, "Congratulations, Colleen! You get to wake up at 3:30 for a week full of
whole
shows.
week.
Just what you wanted."
whole week.
I think you're going to be great.
Oh,
also,
thank you.
I did hear a rumor that you are planning on wearing. So that was a fabulous blue suit that you had.
Oh, yeah.
I heard a rumor
Thank
you're planning on getting Gregg's name across the back.
No, I just if
Rose-
you're,
Because
Rosenthal.
he does
You're gonna yell out, just
he
say,
does want
"Listen."
his name included. in
Okay.
this. Okay.
Well,
that's
I'll
all the time we
consider
have
it.
today.
I don't know what I'm
NFL
wearing
Daily.
yet.
It's okay. We've got a week plus to figure it out. Like I mentioned,
of time.
going to be back in the studio with Patrick Claybon. Matt Harmon will be via remote. Those two guys are old friends. I believe they attended each other's
You're a
weddings.
Via guy, not a Via guy.
I should be. I'm a Vita
Tell Harmon I said what's up.
Vea guy. We're saying hi to Matt Harmon. Football's back.